today. I pray for us 10 here in the room today and all of our staff and everyone that helps us do our jobs well. Our staff throughout our tribe and our organizations. Pray for safe travel for all of them to and from work and their families and everyone else. Hopefully we can enjoy the weather that we're getting, whether it be rain or shine and everything in between, and everything that we're getting now will help in the future. So I'm praying for our kids, grandkids if we got them, parents, grandparents. I always pray for my friends and all of my enemies and everyone in between. Limit.
Well, much, Martin. We have a set of minutes from June 3rd.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Ellie.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Bing.
on page 2, where underneath your statement there, I got being responded, if they find a camp, I think we ought to put want to camp instead of find a camp.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Anita.
I'd make the motion to approve the June 3rd minutes with corrections.
Okay, motion by Anita, second by Ellie. Any other changes? All those in favor? Abstain? Motion carries unanimous. Okay, on our agenda today, I have one addition, the Arlie Celebration Committee request. Are there any other additions? Motion by Charmel to approve the agenda with addition, second by Anita. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Okay, our first item is the Arlie Celebration Committee request. And Jennifer's, she emailed it to us, but she's also going to bring it up on the screen. We received a letter requesting well, where did it go? The committee requesting to do a memorial on July 4th. There it is. And this is the schedule. They requested to do a memorial, a material stick game, snake dance, honoring of veterans, a feed, and then social dancing. And this would go on from 10:30 a.m. Oh, and a mass until 10 p.m. Do you want to bring up that budget, Jen? So the total event cost would be $5,450 for this one-day event. We did allocate money to the celebration committee for this year, so it could come out of that. Rick said that we would do a use agreement with them, and we could clarify that it would be their responsibility for cleaning up the grounds afterwards, because that was a concern. I'm not sure about security, if there was going to be overnight camping, or even just security during the day. So Bing, do you have any information on that?
Not much, Madam Chair. I was gone over rounding this past weekend and had the meeting Sunday. And just a little bit of what they had on phones that they had texted each other, but no, I really don't know. But you know, I know, like I said, for the camping, I said if they were going to camp, they were going to, you know, let them stay overnight or on the third line of third and stay to the fourth. But I don't know. I can't say too much more because I wasn't there and they didn't say anything to me, you know, too much about it. So I haven't got talked. We never got back last night till about 10:30, so we got home late last night. So
Glenn?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the council. Yeah, I totally support this this endeavor here. I was just sitting here thinking, I think probably the only problem that we're really going to have is how do you plan on clearing stick game players out by 10 o'clock? But I think it's a great thing for the community, and I really support this, and I really commend the powwow committee for you know, thinking outside the box here and get something going for the community here. I was also thinking here that this may be a good opportunity, to collaborate with our tribal health to provide vaccinations. If nobody's gotten vaccinated, there could be a good time to maybe put up a little booth there or something. But anyway, I just wanted to say good job, powwow committee.
So I don't think we're cutting off the stick game players at 10. It just said home sweet home for the dancers. Yeah, we could just shoot them in the arm when they come in if they don't have a vaccination card. Carol?
Madam Chair, I also think we could just call this a mini celebration and provide security. I don't think that hurts at all. I mean, if that's what we think they need, then I think we need to provide it. I think it's all a positive note, and here's the lady who we need to talk to. So yeah, I'm in full support of this whole thing because I think it just helps the community realize that, things are getting back to normal, but we still have precautions we need to take.
Good morning, Nori. Can you turn on your mic? Good morning. Good morning. So we're just discussing the committee request to hold the one-day event at the Powwow Grounds. We have the budget request, and the only thing we were just now discussing was the security, if there would be a need for security. So
Security. We didn't plan for security. It was just going to be a day event. And I don't think it's going to require any security.
okay, is there any other questions? Go ahead, Fred.
Well, I was just thinking if there, we could approve the request, but if there is a need for security, like I think Lynn mentioned, I think we could add that too and provide that because I think this is really a needed event. People have been, I mean, there's all kinds of things that's since the pandemic has gone on that just I think it's just really a good chance for people to get together and anyway, I think we should support them by providing the security if they need it.
Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Council and Nori and okay. Yeah, I fully support this. I think that we could do a very quick and easy transition from offer all of our door monitors the opportunity to do security down there. And they're already on the payroll. They're already gone through the process. Hopefully, we could work with Jim on that and just provide that because that would be probably a decent amount of, I think the incentive would be there for them to do it. And then obviously, I'm sure we would want to get a hold of law and order and make sure they're aware of this event and maybe see if they could staff up a little bit. I would hate to see something happen here because we just didn't. I'm always about being safe and always about making sure that we exhaust everything that we can do to do that. So that'd be my advice. And we have, I believe that we have the funding to do that. So thank you.
Okay, so we'll just work out the details with Rick and the committee as in the use agreement. Anita?
I just had a quick comment. I don't think 500 plates is going to be enough.
Yeah, Ruthie and the Veterans Committee, they are also going to incorporate some things with the honoring of the veterans. She said that they were going to give out some gifts during the veterans part of the honoring. So, and she's with the Veterans Powwow Committee, Ruthie and her group.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the request. Motion by Ellie, second by Martin. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For all the support. Okay, have a good day.
And just get with Rick to work out that use agreement.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're,
Okay, next up we have Forestry. Their information starts on page 2 in the packet. Tony?
Tony, you're muted.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, Hespec, sorry about that. Trying to get to an appointment here, so I got caught on my mobile. So we're here today. Our agenda items are on page 2 and 3, seeking permission to accept a proposal from Bitterroot Contracting for the Moss Ranch Fire Salvage Logging Unit. As you guys know, that was a fire that happened in 2019. We sent out one round of bidding for it, advertisements. We got no bids for it. After that, we tried to propose it to other loggers.
Hey, Tony?
We're losing you, Tony.
Tony, you're underwater.
Open it up for firewood cutting. There was no Bitterroot Contracting came to us with a bid. Yeah.
So Tony, yeah, it sounded like you were underwater there for a bit. Steve, did you want to add anything?
You want me to fill in a little bit? Yeah. So back in 2016, we tried to advertise the Moss salvage sale and we didn't get any bidders at that time. And in the meantime, since then, we've had several loggers go in there and, you know, they expressed a little interest. And when they did, they looked at it and they said they just couldn't do it. There's some road work involved with it. So we've been trying to get somebody interested in that for a while. We proposed it to the little loggers and woodcutters group that we work with, and they didn't seem to show any interest in it, even as firewood at this point. So just recently, this group, Bitterroot Contracting, came in, and it's the Stingers that are proposing. They looked at it previously and they couldn't figure out how to do it. But then they've come back and they made a proposal to us to how to get this done. It's there's not a lot of income revenue to be generated from their proposal, but we do get a little revenue. We do get the ground prep for planting because we've already have trees allocated to put in the ground there. And those trees were paid for with bear funding. So we have an obligation to get them into the ground and they're growing already. So we're meeting some silvicultural objectives, and plus part of the agreement was that they would deliver 5 loads of firewood for the Lehap/Elders program also, which is part of what they would be required to do. So what we're asking for today is approval of accepting their proposal to develop a contract to incorporate their proposal in.
Is this a tribal member group?
No, they are not tribal member.
Hey, Steve, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, go for it, Tony.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I caught the end of that there. Sorry, council, I was having a AirPod issue apparently. So yes, correct. This is non-tribal contractor, but he is a descendant, I believe, Steve. And as Steve hit the points, it will generate revenue for the tribe. This is ground that we see just needs to be treated. We have bare trees growing right now, bare funded trees growing right now. The site prep will be funded by the bare funding. The main goal of this is silviculture prescription and ground treating and restoration of the ground. It's not a huge revenue generated sale. His proposal came in, if you look at page 3 with the executive summary, $3 a ton for small Doug fir, $5 a ton for large Doug fir, $7 a ton for pine, which when we advertised it was $5 a ton, I believe, for $4 or $5 a ton for fir or for pine, sorry, and $8 a ton for fir. So he came in right at the same bid level as we advertised already previously.
Okay, Martin has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Tony and Steve. So are they gonna be delivering 6 semi-loads of wood that's been burnt? I mean, like gone through the fire, or how? I mean, I chop a lot of wood for my elderly dad, and he hates wood that has been through a fire. So just curious on that.
Yeah, I got Chuck Bird here. He helped lay that sale out, and he said for the most part, a lot of that wood is not burnt, but some of it is. So there may be some char on some of the firewood, but probably, not most of it.
So Steve, can you address the road issue again?
The road issue, initially, the only way to access the road or the area was to build a road from the bottom. And this is part of their agreement that they would do that work. And also there was going to be some road construction on top, which we're not going to have to do now. So there's about a half a mile road to be built, 0.56 miles versus 1.56 miles. The Bitterroot Contracting would do that road, and then they would do the road maintenance up to that area. They're going to be logging with both line ground equipment and line equipment and ground equipment. So tractor logging and line logging to access the units. There's 201 acres that they would be logging in. It's in the original environmental assessment, which was the Ferry Basin 2016 assessment. This was proposed, and there was actually, the units were about 370 acres. But we necked it down some because a lot of that ground was pretty inaccessible or rocky or not real valid timber ground. So the actual acres to be logged are 201 acres.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
The road would be closed off after we got done with the follow-up activities of planting and whatever else needed to be done up there. We would assume those responsibilities because that funding has already been provided for through bear funding.
Madam Chair, I'd make the motion to approve this with hopefully the elders don't get all the charred wood that is pretty much worthless to a logger. Thank you.
Okay, motion by Martin to approve the harvest proposal from Bitterroot Contracting. Second by Fred. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, sorry, I apologize. I got kicked off a couple times there. And that to talk to with Martin there on that point, yeah, the wood may be charred. Some of it, a lot of that is going to be bark fluff that chars off. The burnable product, the main core of the wood should be fine and sound, and that's what will be provided for the elder program, the app programs, along with the same stuff we usually bring in also. So,
Thank you, Tony.
all right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
too.
you.
Okay, so next up we have NRD, Rich Jansen. His information starts on page 4 in the packet.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the council. I have Ryan Rushi with me today. I'm trying to get Dan Lozar on the horn as well.
Dan's on.
Okay. Good. We are coming to you today to begin and get approval, if possible today, to enter into a contract with Aerotech. They are a company out of Spokane, Washington that we've worked with in the past with council approval. When we hired 2 important positions, one in 2017 and one in 2019, they were hard to staff engineering type positions. We have talked extensively with Ryan Rushi and Ricky Enos about this, and Dan Lozar has kind of been leading the charge. We are looking for approval to enter into a contract with this company to provide recruitment and staffing needs for the water compact implementation. And these positions are highly technical, requiring extensive experience and education. You can see in your packet, Madam Chair, a sample or a past contract that we used with this company back in 2019. So this is not the actual contract. This is just the contract that we used with them in the past. We're already having difficulties hiring, going through the typical personnel department. We had an engineer that was a non-member. He chose not to take the position. And just proven difficult at this point. So I have Dan on the line if you have any questions.
I have a comment.
Len has a comment. Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the council, and thank you, Rich. I understand the importance of these types of consultant firms that we need to work with. However, I would also like to hear how we're going to recruit our tribal members on jobs when we start to implement the water compact. We understand that there is a lot of professionals that are needed to start the engineering and design work, but we have yet to hear how we're going to recruit tribal members. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
I mean, are you asking for an answer right now?
No response, Rich. That was just a comment.
Okay. Thank you, Len.
Madam Chair.
Cal?
Yeah, I think that, to me, Len, that's covered in policy, that they're required to follow the Indian preference and exhaust all remedies that they can, and I'll make a motion that we approve the, is it a contract? I'm just trying to find it.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Rick.
I would just to help clarify for Carol, there's not a contract approval officially at this point. It's just Ordinance 69D requires council approval to engage these firms, and
That's right. I remember seeing that headhunter or something about it in the
Yep.
ordinance. Okay, but that's what my motion is, Madam Chair, to allow the process to them to follow it with council approval.
Okay, motion by Carol, second by Ellie. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. And I just wanted to, I guess, comment briefly on Len's question. We did talk about this in our planning session in Helena about what we could do to recruit our youth to go into these positions, because we know this water compact implementation is going to take years, if not decades. So we talked about recruiting, our young people to, consider engineering, hydrology, technician, all those positions that we'll be needing in the future. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's it for NRD today.
Thank you, Rich, Dan, Ryan. Okay, next up we have Rick on the pay scale, starting on page 19.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for the motorcycle noise as I unmuted. I guess you probably heard it in chambers as well. Renee Joachim, I believe, is joining. We have a request, and you can see an example of, I guess it's kind of hard to read, but on page 20, a little visual of the policy question that I wanted to pose to council this morning. And that is a screenshot of pay scale, and the policy question we have for council relates to the weighting between the national and the local ranges within each job. And there's a highlighted section in the middle here that shows a slider that you can adjust, and it takes the weight from, in this case, 50-50 to, I guess, whatever we want. We can weight it from anywhere from 100% local to 100% national. But we're seeking guidance from council on whether you have any preference in terms of how that weight should apply, because we would like to have a policy in place so that we can be consistent across the board. The default is 50-50, and what that means for your consideration is for those instances where the local pay range is lower in total than the national, we would be picking up 50% of that range would be weighted towards the local, 50% towards a higher. And so our pay plan in that instance would end up with a little bit higher rate than than strictly if we went 100% local. In general, you could assume that national is higher than local in terms of the range of rates of pay for most positions, but there are several pretty heavily weighted the opposite way, where the local range is higher than the national range. And so if, I guess if we're gonna make a decision, there's going to be instances in either case, wherever we put that weighting, that we will be weighting it higher or lower than if we just strictly went local. And in some cases, we don't have a local range to compare against because the job is not, I guess, prolific enough in the local market, which is basically our local area, Western Montana.
Carol has a comment?
Yeah, Rick, where do benefits fall into the pay scale? Because, I mean, when you negotiate a contract, usually that's a part of the benefit package, and an addition, I think, kind of like pay. It's not a pay increase, but it's a benefit. And so does that fall in here?
It doesn't in what we're looking at. Pay scale does have what they call a total compensation. Renee, I'm not sure if you know what that stands for. It's TCC, it's total compensation. I just can't remember what the last C is right now. But what we're looking at is just wages to wages, and the range of benefits is in some cases it's kind of all over the board. Total cash and compensation. Thank you, Renee. But pay scale doesn't capture all of the benefits that come through. It's usually bonuses and contributions to health plans and that kind of thing that they're looking at when they look at total cash and compensation. We do want to continue the conversation with council on the chapter 6 of the personnel ordinance, the benefits section.
Okay, I guess the second part of the question is, if somebody requested, or maybe this isn't allowed, when you start in this organization, you start at the minimum of leave accrual, or is that negotiable? And to me, that affects a wage.
Yeah, it's not negotiable except in the instance of a contract. But with the new pay plan and the updates to the ordinance, we're trying to get away from having employees on contract in any way outside of our stated benefits package. So
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I think that they have sometimes more opportunity to negotiate wage every year than a regular traditional employee. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Sharmel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rick, you mentioned that some of the positions are a little bit higher locally, and some positions are a little bit higher nationally. Is there an example of what that disbursement looks like in the type of positions you're referring to? Which ones locally are paying a little bit better than nationally? If that can be answered, please.
Yeah, I don't have that with me, but what I was hoping to get is some of the considerations that council would want to have as part of this discussion, and we can come back with that. There are several that are higher locally, and they're kind of, in some ways, they're kind of random kind of quirks of our local economy. One that I can think of is I can't remember exactly which one, but it's an engineering position of some kind. And then weirdly, there's some like administrative assistant positions that are higher locally than nationally, and but we can get that range, and or we can. I think we might be able to run a report that would show that generally what we see is on individual position by position, we see the breakdown like you see on the screen. So we haven't been able to look at it globally. It's kind of an anecdotal evidence that I know that there are a range of positions just because we've gone through all of them, that some are higher locally and some are higher nationally. But we can look into that and see what we can bring back.
Okay, Carol, Martin?
Yeah, just one more comment. Isn't it based on availability of funds in your budget and what you budget each year for positions? And that's basically, instead of asking us, I think it should be more towards what is required, what's in the job description, and availability of funds, because those department heads are required to, know what's coming up and what they need out in the field. And instead of us answering that question.
Well, there's some aspect of it that is true, Carol, but what we're looking at is for each position, when we set the pay plan, we're going to be giving department heads and employers a range, and this question sets that range. So if we move it 100% local, and local wages are way over here, then the flexibility that supervisors and department heads have is within the range that we're then setting based on this weighting factor, and that's why it's a policy question.
Okay, I don't want to tie anybody's hands, so I say leave it in the middle then. It kind of goes both, takes in both, right?
Yeah, I think the advantage of leaving it in the middle is that it does, for those positions where it is where the locals on the lower end of the spectrum, it does give us an advantage, and we're for the most part pretty heavily employing our tribal membership, so it does provide a benefit to our tribal members in that instance. And the range itself is usually not significantly different enough where local is higher than national that we're not still being competitive. In all of these cases, we're moving to a very competitive market-based pay range. What I wanted to avoid by bringing this question up is being able to play game, if you will, on a position by position basis. And personally, I'm comfortable with it at the 50-50. There are, but I guess that's not a call that I think is within our realm. I think that's a council policy decision. So.
Okay, Martin?
Are all the positions benchmarked in pay scale as of right now? And did you see my question in the chat about how much more this is going to cost us if we left it at 50?
Rick, you're on mute.
So at 50%, how much more does this cost CSKT as opposed to like 100% local? I don't know that. The challenge is if we run 100% local as the policy, as I mentioned, there are some positions where there's no local weighting. And so we would end up we would have outliers there. We can find out what the difference would be, I think, but your other question about all the positions being benchmarked, they are pending this policy decision. And there's a few that Renee and I are still working to find the best match, the best comparable position to match against, but they're all, I guess, in the system.
Okay, Sharmel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rick and Renee, are you hoping for a decision on this soon? Because I guess what I'm thinking is, as I understand this system, it should be reviewed and maybe brought current on a regular basis, whether it's annually or every, other year or whatever. There should be a review of the pay scale and so that it follows the market and so forth. So I guess I would be agreeable to starting off with the 50% distribution and kind of doing a little more study before the next update to see what kind of better distribution we should be looking at for our particular positions.
Rick, isn't that covered in our new 69D?
It is covered that we will annually do market adjustments, and that's a process that is built into 69D. As we're going through this, though, there is pay scale does recommend a review of kind of the policies, not our ordinance, but the policies around wage setting on a pretty regular basis. So yeah, I think Councilwoman Gillen is correct in that we're not necessarily locked in to something. And maybe as we go through it, it ultimately gets more nuanced, and we don't have a strict 50-50 weight at some point in the future, but we do it based on position. But as we're going into it, I didn't want to, I'm very concerned that if we don't start on a relatively level playing field, that it just creates opportunities for us to not implement this well. And so I do think it would be good to start it now, and then we can review it as necessary going forward.
Okay, any other questions? So as long as it's applied consistently, I'm just concerned about the gender gap that I read about, where women in positions make 18% less than men in the same positions. So.
Yeah, Madam Chair, there shouldn't be any, I guess part of that gender gap, not to get too far off topic, is built into things like titles and other things. But when we're doing this, that's not a compensable factor, as they call it. It's gender is kind of irrelevant to the position. So this will help to some degree alleviate that.
Martin?
I think that our organization, if you look around with that, I look at this room, I think it's the opposite if you would look at that. And then I think we've empowered a lot of women within our organization as well. And so I think we're on the right path to creating a more equitable, environment here. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, do we have a motion to move forward with the 50-50 proposal? Motion by Charmel, second by Anita. All those in favor? Opposed? Mike opposes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With that, then Renee and I will work to bring the full package back for council review, but I think it will just necessarily only need to be a review because this is the last policy piece that we needed to put in place. But before we implement it, we'll bring it forth for council's consideration.
Madam Chair.
Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One last thing, Renee, could you resend all of our pay scale kind of logins? So if we so choose to as a council, we could go in there and look at these and play around with this a little bit. The last time I tried to log on, it said I needed that sent from you. So it's for me, but I'll just include everybody in the email request, please.
I can do that.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to take a break before our 40 pages of enrollment stuff? Okay, we'll take a short break. Jen, are you bringing enrollment back? Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Next up, we have enrollment, and their information starts on page 21 in the packet. Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you have first on the agenda?
First on the agenda is Sonia Chippewa.
Sonia? Now, in regards to Sonia's request, I did do a research approximately seven or 8 years ago, and we did do a blood correction. And now she's requesting that we review the research again, and we still can't find anything that'll be different. Now, she is requesting that we have a wrong name on Madeline. Madeline and Adeline are the same. We just have the official records that date back that says it's Madeline. And so unless there's some other official records that we're not seeing that classifies Madeline as Adeline, then I just haven't found it.
Sonia, did you have something?
All this time I was looking for Madeline Payne. Madeline Payne, Madeline Barnaby. And it was Adeline Barnaby. And they have on different records, there's Adeline, Madeline, Adelaide, and they had the Paynes, different spelling, PIN, PAYE, PANE, and I know it's really mind-boggling, I guess what you want to say. But anyway, I checked in Spokane, I checked Idaho, and that's where my Tupia, Madeline Payne was enrolled. That's where she's from. Her parents were Susan and Louis. I checked back as far as the papers showed me, and they're all different. Even the birth dates don't match. And you can't, as much as I've tried to separate them. I've tried to connect them, I guess, and it just doesn't, there's nothing on Joe Payne Sr. It's all Joe Payne Jr. And he lived here on the res and he died here on the res. And they're saying that Joe Payne Jr. or Sr. died in Missoula County. Well, they have nothing on him, nothing. They've sent me papers and all it contains too is just Joe Payne Jr. And they have him, like I said before, they have him down as half Indian, half French. Well, what's French? What is the French? That's all I'm trying to clear out is, because I found out that French is just a statement word. It's not a nationality. I'd like to know what the nationality is on the French side of Joe Payne Sr. And I don't know, like I said, it's been more than 7 or 8 years. It's been 25 years since I've been into this, since I first come back to the res. And it's been 25 years since I talked with you and tried to get you to get into it. And all of a sudden, the Finley side is all full. And I didn't even know anything about it till I started talking with Rose. Nobody told me that the Finley side was all full. So that's when I started asking again about the pain. I'd come in, I'd say, well, how come I'm not down as full? Well, you're missing this. And you circled that around that piece of paper where you said, well, you're missing this half on Joe Payne Sr. And that's where you have to get into it and look. And I've got papers saying that Joe Payne Sr. is a mixed blood Indian. He was a Indian interpreter for the army. And what else? I don't know what else. I've got a whole pamphlet full of papers, and they still have it as half.
Yeah, and Sonia is right. The birth certificate or the research that we found is that Joseph Payne Sr. was half French and half Indian, and his French comes from France, not from another Indian. You know, because his lineage goes back to Quebec, and so that's where his lineage comes from. That's other than Indian. If you look at the census that are in there, it shows that it's Indian, French, and Indian. You know, so there's nothing more that we can go by that would determine that there's an error in the lineage.
So you don't have any action request on this one?
Well, we're going to need an action to say that there's no further evidence to make a correction. Because I think Sonia needs either a yes or a no on whether they're going to accept the French as being Indian, or no, that it's a French delineation, and not another Indian.
Shama?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I have a real difficult time weighing in at that level, Lawrence, because the researchers and Sonia, you guys have different information than what we have. And so, you know, for me to want to take an action that says, you know, based on what I'm given here, there's no evidence according to what Sonia is requesting. And one of the things that I'm curious about, I mean, you say that the Joe Payne Sr. goes back to, we must have some critters in here bothering the chairwoman. One of the things that you're saying which I don't know about, is you're saying that it goes all the way back to Quebec. Well, does that mean that there's a record of an immigration record?
Yeah,
that
when
ties
you go
him
back to the early,
excuse me,
early census.
Excuse me, let me finish,
Okay, I'm sorry.
Lawrence, if I could, please, because here's some of the things that I think would help. If we could see a little bit more about what you're seeing so that we could either agree or disagree, then I think you'd get the support that you're looking for, or Sonia would get the support she's looking for, one way or the other. But the thing that always boggles my mind, and I'm sure it's a real difficulty for you and your researchers, is the Métis issue. And the fact that, you know, the First Nations in Canada, to my knowledge, aren't documented very well. And so, you know, I don't know what that does to a lot of the research that needs to happen when that boundary line comes into play and there's a difference in, you know what I'm saying? So if you're saying that it goes back to an immigration record, then I can understand that, but I don't see that here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fred?
You were asking us to make a decision today. I kind of throw it back, and Lawrence, you guys are the shop, the enrollment shop, and you know the parameters around how we enroll people. And you know all the details of how we do that. I would throw it back into your lap unless you can give us information that is presented. Otherwise, we have to, in my mind, have to go by what you recommend.
Yep. What we did, Freddie, is that we kind of condensed it. The file is a pretty large file that we have. And for the benefit of not overwhelming the council, we condensed it to the important issues. And the issues are that everything leads to that Joe Payne Sr. is half French and half Indian. And that's the parcels of documents that we provided to council that shows that there isn't anything different than what was already determined to be. On the other side, we did correct the other side and changed the blood quantum on the other family side. But we cannot find any other evidence going further that would change the lineage of Joe Payne Sr.
So I guess to Charmel's comment, do you do you have research on the Métis? I mean, do you have any connections with that? With those records?
We can provide them. One of the, and there's another alternative too. It can be tabled for further research instead of a yes or no. So there is 3 alternatives. But I believe Sonia is here for a decision one way or another so that she'll know where she stands and what she has to do further.
Anita?
So, thank you. I would rather table it until I'd like further information or given her some assistance in digging up the Métis. If at all possible, if there was some kind of lineage back to that. But I wouldn't want to make a decision today. I think it requires more research into that.
One of the other evidences that we did check with the Salish Kalispel Cultural Committee because they did a family tree for Sonia years prior. Was it Clarence Woodcock that did it for you or?
It was Thompson Smith.
Yeah, well, we talked with Thompson and then he provided us with what he had. And what he had was the same thing that we had.
What I'm trying to find out is what is the French part? The French is just a statement. It's not a nationality. It's just a word, the French word. I want to know if it's what nationality it is. And there is no sign of the Cree lineage, the Chippewa lineage from Canada. And that's apparently where he originated from. So I don't know.
But
That's-
French is a nationality,
No, it's just a
the
statement.
language and from France.
So do you guys have connections with the Red River settlement? You know, those records?
Oh, you mean Hudson Bay? That'd be Hudson Bay, Red River. Those, what we're looking at, I never checked the Hudson Bay records, but I did check the census records of Canada in prior years. And that's where we find like the old Jocko Finley's parent went back to Quebec and became a stove stoker or whatever they are, but it's a high ranking position in Canada. And that's where Paynes come from. I thought it was England, but it wasn't England, it was France. Because I always thought Payne was an English name, not a French name.
Okay. So is there a motion to table this? Or? Go ahead, Fred.
I'll make the motion to tables for Lawrence and the enrollment office and Sonia to come up with additional research so that we could make a informed decision.
Okay, motion by Fred. Second by Anita. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Mike abstains, motion carries. Okay. Okay, so the next item is relinquishment for Felicia Pachette.
Correct. Ms. Pachette submitted a relinquishment to us in May and is wanting to enroll with the Spokane tribe. And she is eligible through them.
Motion by Charmel. Second by Fred. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries with Mike Dolson out of the room. Anita?
Just a quick question. You guys were talking about going to some kind of training up at Canada, and this was pre-COVID, the pandemic thing.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever manage to?
We haven't go up to review the records and stuff up there yet. We haven't made a final decision yet, but yeah, we would like to.
Thank you. I think that'd be great, you know, to get up there and be able to get into them records because it is confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
So-
I look forward to going. We.
When they open the border.
I'm getting used to being slapped around.
Okay.
Okay, next item is the burial allowance form.
Do you want to do the burial allowance review?
Okay. We had a situation that arose in one of our deaths, and it concerned the burial benefits and who the beneficiary was. In our burial allowance form, we did not have a name. We just had first personal rep and second personal rep. And in our policies, the personal rep that was listed would receive the remainder of those funds that were unused for burial. The question come up is that's not a beneficiary, that's just a personal rep. We had a discussion with one of the attorneys, and that's what she brought up, is that we have to define personal rep and beneficiary. Well, I did put in on the amended version, I did have beneficiary. Then she contacted us and said that just keep it the same, just put a statement in there. And so we put the statement in to amend the form that would say the balance of the unneeded burial funds would be paid to the individual listed below. That way it's clear and concise on who is going to get the remainder of the burial funds, if there are any remaining. So this meets the needs of those individuals who question, because one person filed to be an executor at tribal court, but that does not cover the remaining of the burial funds. These funds go to the person that's listed as the personal rep. And even though we didn't really state on the application where the funds would go, in our policy, it states where the remainder of the funds would go, which was on the back. So the attorney wanted us to put it in clear and concise on the front, so that the individual that's naming who they're going to list as a representative would be known, and if there are any remaining funds, who that money will go to from the policies that we have.
So it doesn't go into probate?
If there's no personal rep, it goes into probate. If there is a personal rep listed as to our policies, that personal rep is then provided the remainder of the funds.
Ellie?
Lawrence, is it common that there's money left over?
Yeah, we send out a notice stating that there is a remainder of funds. Whoever the personal rep is over there would get the letter. If we have a personal rep listed on the burial funds allowance, then we would notify them with a letter stating what the expenses were and how much is remaining. And that remainder, then a check is made out, requested by a PR is made, requested from accounting to make a payment to this individual.
Anita?
So what'll happen from now on, whoever's already filed theirs, you'll go with, that these will be the new burial forms?
In fact, the person that's filling out the form and naming who their personal rep is when they are deceased will put the name down on who they want to receive those funds. So there won't be any question about she shouldn't have got it or he shouldn't have got it because I'm the oldest. This way it'll be concise and clear on who that person named that should get it if there are any remainder.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, is there a place where you say split amongst siblings?
Yeah, on the back it states if there's if both, let's say the personal rep and the second personal rep are deceased, and the person that they named was deceased, then we go by siblings. And that's in the policies on the distribution.
No, what I'm saying is, let's say the personal representative is intact, but the person that's deceased would like to have the personal representative split it amongst siblings.
Yeah, well, they would name the person right here on who they want to receive it.
I don't know if you're following me. So let's say that personal representative and the deceased have siblings. And the deceased in that, on that paper suggests that the money be split. I mean, there's not even enough money to split, but
Right.
let's say they say split it. Is that on there somewhere?
Well, they would name, just say, just list all the
Okay.
siblings.
Martin, did you have something?
Madam Chair. Does this happen very often? Does this ever,
It happens, there's a lot of family disagreements on how that fund should be distributed. And, but on the remainder of the funds, we only had this one contested. It's usually on the distribution and how that person, they say, my dad passed away and he wanted a funeral this way, and the other family member says, no, he told me this way. We got to do it. That there's those disputes about the distribution, but never about the remainder of the funds, except for this last one, which went to an individual that wasn't a tribal member, but she was specific to us on how she wanted it done, but we just didn't have it in writing.
Go ahead, Martin.
So then this, if that, we get more requests about them going over, the amount versus this. And so could this just be something that we do case by case rather than doing a blanket statement? And because this is the first time I've ever heard of anyone going under and even having to worry about giving this money back. And, the other part of me feels like this is the tribe's burial fund, and maybe those monies should just revert back to the burial fund for people that go over. And, I know that's not going to be very popular, but, if they're not using it for a funeral, why would they get it, is my question.
Yeah, it's been the procedure of giving it out whenever to all tribal members. I understand with cremation, it's a lot less expensive than having a burial interment. So a lot of people recently have been getting cremation done instead of having a formal burial. And especially with COVID, it impacted a lot of people that didn't want to endanger their fellow family members. So they would do immediate cremation with no other services. And so there was funds left over.
And I know some families use that leftover money for like a headstone later.
Yep.
Maybe they're not ready to, really choose one at the immediate time. And so I know I've seen that situation as well. Fred?
Well, I'd make the motion to include that to solve your issue of the unpaid balance of the funeral distribution funds.
So motion by Fred to approve the burial allowance form. Second by Bing. Questions, comments? Go ahead, Charmel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only question, I guess, is there any expectation, I guess, that that last name on your form would be different than the personal representative named above? Or would you be advising them to name the same person? Because the policy seems to state that the personal rep would be the one receiving the money.
Yeah, in most cases, like you said, it'll probably be the name of the first personal rep. But in some cases, you know, it it may be different. We're just making sure that family members understand that this person actually put this other person who is not going to be the rep as that individual.
Well, the reason why I asked for that clarification, if I might, then on page 38 of the packet, I believe that's your policy statement, and it says, beginning April 15th, 1995, any tribal member who has not designated a personal representative for the burial fund will have the remaining balance after all related burial costs have been paid, will be directed to probate and become part of the estate. So this is kind of overriding that policy if it's a different person named other than the personal representative.
Yeah. Attorneys didn't catch that one. But I wouldn't see any situation that would really go that far, because even this last one where it was contested, the personal rep wasn't a family member that received the remaining funds, but she was specific on that's what she wanted.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Carol?
I have one question under the COVID rescue plan. I believe there's a funeral recovery cost. Who applies for that? I haven't had a chance to read that, but is that the CSK tribe who paid out the money, or is it the individual of the deceased, or the beneficiary of the deceased?
For our burial funds or for
No,
COVID?
for the national.
Oh, the COVID burial allowance? The individual is responsible for making the application for the burial allowance. And they have to only get reimbursed for those funds that are out of their own pocket. You cannot get reimbursed for all the tribal members. We give them $5,000 for their burial allowance. If there's a cost over that, they can apply for reimbursement, but it has to be out of their pocket. It can't come from another insurance company to cover it. It has to be OPE.
Okay, let's take a vote on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Charmel's opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
In Carol, in regards to that COVID, we do have a couple of them, not on the reservation, but off the reservation, where burial expenses are $10,000. So that 5,000 covers 5, so they get reimbursed for the other.
Okay, next up we have the DNA policy and procedures.
Madam Chair, we had Clayton review it, and also he had DHRD attorney for DHRD review it. There are some recommendations that needed to be looked at that was being provided by the attorney in regards to our DNA policy. She drafted up the DNA policy for DHRD. They're consistent, but yet there's some things that we forgot to put into the DNA policy. Is one that strict confidentiality would be adhered to. So we have to put that in. There's other areas that have to be looked at and kind of make it more clear and broadening it out so that the individuals will understand the processes that's taken place. Some of the suggestions that were brought up were also taken care of in the DNA testing policy, not the DNA collection policy. So I have to go back in and refer the DNA policy to the DNA testing policy. So there's some little cleanup that we need to do.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
So was there one more item? Brandon Pierce?
Brandon Pierce.
Okay. Yeah, Madam Chair, I was just wondering why our legal department isn't working on this enrollment policy rather than a department's attorney. I just think it's a tribal thing, and I think it needs to stay as independent as possible. And it should be legal doing this review and observation and recommendations.
Well, it's my fault, Madam Chair, because I sent it out to individuals and especially the council for review and comment. I sent it to Rick. Rick transferred that responsibility to Clayton. So I'm working with Clayton on that. And Clayton trying to streamline it is worked with DHRD so to see how their policies are. Now, in prior years, we wouldn't accept the DNA results from DHRD, but they are certified collectors and they do follow the certification process. So we then notified them that we could, as long as we got all the secure information along with it, that showed the process that it was a secure DNA.
Madam Chair.
I have always tried to maintain that we stay as independent on this DNA testing and anything that we do with enrollment. I mean, this impacts us as a people, and I don't want to make any kind of assumptions that people would do wrong, but I know there's a lot of people that pay to get in this tribe.
Yeah, and I agree
And I don't
with
want to put anybody in a position that could ever happen. And so if we stay as independent as possible, and this is just my thought, maybe others have different feelings about this. And so that's why I've always maintained that we stay as independent as we possibly can. It may cost a little money, but then we know that it's whatever.
Right.
It just.
On the DNA testing policies, Stu Levitt was the one that reviewed that and made the recommendations on how to legalize it and prevent problems. And maybe I should give it back to Stu on the collection so that he would be consistent with the DNA testing and the DNA collection.
Yeah, I think that's a good course.
Madam Chair.
Clayton.
Yeah, just to put a final point on that. We did talk about having legal review that, and so that it was our intention to have that done before the final draft gets back to you. And I have a note into Rhonda, heads up basically that it's coming. So.
Okay, so we'll hold off on the DNA policy and procedures for now.
Okay, and that concludes our presentation, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have legal. Brian, are you ready? Oh, there's Rhonda. Go ahead, Rhonda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Brian's ready and has quite a presentation this morning. If you thought your minds were numbed before, we'll see how they are after. Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks for the intro, Rhonda. Good morning, Council. Good morning, Chairwoman. I'd recommend we go into executive session for the discussion.
Okay, we'll go out of regular into executive.